Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of Ranking the Albums. And there he is in the co-captain's chair, Mr. George Lamie. What's happening, my friend?
Hold on, dude.
We both have our iced tea. We're ready to go. George has got the brand new camera, looking good. We can see all the music behind him. That wonderful Psychotic Waltz shirt, which is great for today because we are ranking the albums of Psychotic Waltz. George and I were just talking before we started taping, one of the unsung great bands in progressive metal that for some strange reason just have never got the accolades that they really deserve. Really, really deserve. They were pretty active on the scene in like the very late 80s into the early 90s, then disappeared for a number of years and then came back a couple of years ago with a brand new album, which is also really, really good. And from California, remember what town they're, what city they're from? I'm trying to remember.
They're San Diegans.
Yeah, that's right, San Diego. Very cool place. And you know, San Diego's kind of a chill town, and there is a chillness to this band. I think one of the things, like when they were pretty active band back in the day, that we always talked about is that they had this kind of like psychedelic and classic rock vibe that they injected into their music, which was kind of really cool. But they, over their first four albums, they got five albums in the catalog. Over their first four albums, they went through like that really technical phase, and then they went for more of a dark and heavy and groovy phase, but intermixed with this, regardless of what they were playing, their lead singer. Buddy Lackey, well, that's what he was called back then. Now he's Devin Graves, right? Would also throw in lots of flute and keyboards and things like that into their music, which, every now and then you would get this little Jethro Tull thing pop in. You're like, oh, where'd that come from? But not unwelcome at all. So yeah, the original and classic lineup, and I think still the lineup today, Buddy Lackey slash Devin Graves, who also has this other band called Dead Soul Tribe, which plays very, very different music than this, but he's done some albums there. On lead vocals, flute, piano, keyboards, acoustic guitar. We got Dan Rock on guitars, keyboards, Brian McAlpin on guitars, Ward Evans on bass, and Norm Leggio on drums and percussion. So that's the main lineup. Like I said, we've got five albums. We're going to rank them as we like them. So, George, why don't we go two at a time? So, five, four, three, two, and then we'll do our number ones at the end. So, you can kick us off with your number five.
All right. Number five. Oops, not used to this yet.
There.
There we go. The God-Shaped Void, 2020, the reunion album. So they broke up like 97. They come back, they do this record. For me, reunion albums, I think bands have an unrealistic expectation. They
Yeah.
they think that it's easy to just pick up where you left off. And not only can you pick up where you left off, you can actually be better than you were when you left, which is kind of crazy. I'm happy when a band is in the neighborhood of how they sounded and the quality is pretty close. And they succeed on this one for me. Um, Devils and Angels, the opener, that was the single. Great. This is Psychotic Waltz classic. Stranded, Back to Black, good stuff. And the later tracks too, Sisters of the Dawn, In the Silence, great stuff. The thing is, the I think the middle of the album, you got two ballads in there. This is a band that was characteristically good at ballads because they don't try and make the cloying, cutesy ballads. They're usually more mystical sounding. But these two ballads on here, All the Bad Men and Demystified, not All the Bad Men, The Fallen and Demystified. I don't think they're as inspired as some of the past ballads. Still with the same style, but just they don't feel like they're quite there. And some of this middle stuff also is good stuff, but I'm not sure it's as good as the old stuff. One issue might be, especially down the stretch, it's a little tempo challenged. The dynamics are not there. They they're not one of the few metal bands that's not always better playing up tempo stuff. They do the mid tempo stuff well, but I still think you need to put something in there to change the dynamics of the record, and they don't have it. So I like this album, but it ended up at 5 for me. My number 4 is Bleeding. As you can see, this band always was good at cover art. This is a great cover, probably my favorite of their covers, although it's hard to say. I love them all. Um, this one is probably the one, I know these albums like the back of my hand, but I always refresh when we do these. And this one is the only one that kind of stepped up for me when I was doing this. This is a little better than I remember. I remember being mildly disappointed at the time, but not anymore. Faded, great opener. New bass. There's a different bass player change on this. Phil Catino on bass. He announces his presence with this little slap intro. That's probably my favorite tune on the album. My Grave would be the other one, where they do their Jethro Tull worship that Buddy likes to do. This particular one is really good. I mean, maybe my favorite instance of him doing that thing with the flute and the acoustic guitars. Really good stuff. Um, it's a really consistent record. That's one thing I'll say about this record. Consistency is its strength. I would say Bleeding, the title track, might be a touch off the mark. Um, and maybe the last couple tracks, it kind of loses a little bit of steam, but not much. This is a good album. Um, just barely over my number 3, so I put it at number 4.
All right. My number five, I'm going to go with The God-Shaped Void also. I really like it a lot. And I remember at the time when this came out, I was kind of like, holy shit, they're back. And it just totally still sounds like Psychotic Waltz. I would agree, maybe it's a tad one note throughout the whole album,
Now,
but a lot of keyboards and flute on Devils and Angels. It's a big bombastic song. It's heavy. I really like it a lot. I think that so now by this album he's going fully with the Devin Graves name. I think his vocals are a little bit more, and on parts of this album, a little bit more kind of hushed and almost whispered in spots. Like he's going for like a kind of an ethereal type of vocal style in spots. There's kind of like spacey metal on some of these tracks as well, which I'm totally cool with. I really love Stranded. That's totally kick ass. I like the big twisting riffs. Again, the keyboards in the background kind of add that kind of little space rock element, which I kind of dig. Back to Black, fun headbanger. All the Bad Men, again, that kind of mid-paced thing that they do very, very well. Um, the Fallen, killer chorus on it, but that kind of meanders a little bit in spots, but I like it. I think it's really good. Um, there's a lot of good stuff on here. While the Spiders Spin again shows how well they do that moody thing. Pull the String, big heavy riffs. If you like and these guys know how to do really good riffs. Just good stuff. I don't know. Sister of the Son of the Dawn is another really good one. I think it's a very, very solid album all around. Just maybe not quite up to the original four, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think there's a lot of really high quality there. I almost had this at number 4 because I was going back and forth between my bottom two, but I'm gonna go with this one at number 5, and I'm gonna go with Mosquito. It's my number 4 position. So here you've got, and this is their third album. Scott Burns is producing here, and Scott Burns had worked with a lot of the more extreme metal bands at the time. So he's bringing something a little bit different to the table here. But interestingly enough, he starts working with the band on this album when their sound is changing a little bit. So, this is 1994. So, bands like Soundgarden and Alice in Chains are doing all sorts of stuff right here. You can kind of hear the influence of that scene a little bit on this album. The title track kind of kicks it off. That's kind of, chunky, maybe a little groovier than what we'd expected from them before. But it's a really memorable song. It's quite heavy. Love Stone Blind, that to me sounds like Alice in Chains, but I like Alice in Chains quite a bit, so it's not really um, doesn't bother me much, but it's very unlike what we heard on the first couple albums. Haze One's kind of a straight melodic hard rocker, a little bit of spacey feel. Shattered Sky, moody, kind of dreamy, really like that a lot. I think Cold is a really catchy song. Again, there's more like kind of straightforward stuff on this album. More kind of groove laden, heavy stuff, and just it's just a different album. I love the vocal approach on all the voices, which is really good. Only Time is another really good one. I think that by the time this album comes out, I think that, like me personally, when I look at the whole catalog, and especially the early stuff, I'm missing some of the complexities of the early albums. But I think as far as like a good, straightforward, heavy album with some kind of new things going on, I think it works quite well. But I still think it's the weakest of the first four. So, but yeah, and the guitar work is really good on the whole album. I like what is it? Mind Song. It's kind of interesting, right? It's got like prog and psych and like a little hint of reggae, right? It's got these wah-wah guitar licks. It's just different, but it's good and a cool cover too. So yeah, and by the way, I'm gonna show these reissues that Inside Out came out with recently. If you didn't catch any of my reviews, you should go check them out. These are well worth getting if they're still available. So they have all sorts of bonus material and things like that. So yeah, Mosquito is my number four.
My number three, I got the old Metal Blade reissue.
There you go. You have a different cover. Yep,
So you had a different cover. It looks like Travis Smith, if you ask me. Probably is.
probably.
Um, yeah, what you said. At the time, they took some heat for being commercial. Not commercial. I mean, not in the true sense of the word, but it's definitely the riffs are less worked out. They're less complicated. There is definitely a thought towards making more palatable songs. I think Love Stone Blind could have been a radio song if somebody had pushed it.
There's a lot of potential on some of these songs. Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. Yep.
Uh, Probably, I mean, Mosquitoes probably my favorite. The title track, the opener. They do great openers, this band.
Yep.
Cold, I love Cold. Haze One, always, I think it's about smoking weed on the road because it always reminded me of a weed smoking album. This band is like they got a hippie vibe to them. There's like a definite weed smoking
Yeah.
vibe to stuff. Um, yeah, it's just a strong album all the way through. Lackey might be maybe at his peak here. If it's not here, it's on maybe Into the Everflow. He just his melodies at this time, he was probably my favorite singer. This is the first one after he did a solo album back then called The Strange Mind of Buddy Lackey, which is also something everybody should have. But I didn't mind the tamping down of the progressive elements, even though I obviously prefer the progressive elements since the two proggy ones haven't been mentioned yet. But if you're going to go a little bit more streamlined, they do it really, really well.
Yeah, it's funny, like when I was re-listening to all this stuff this week, I was marveling at how good a singer he is. And I'm trying to think, it's like, God, if I was to explain the way he sings to someone, how would I do it? Because you almost like can't even compare him to anybody else. And I'm going to bring it up with my next pick, but like he's got a little Ian Gillan in him at
Okay.
times, but he's got more range and can do different things. I don't know. He doesn't really sound like anybody else. He's very, very unique sounding.
When I got the first album, my there was parts in there that my go-to was John Arch.
Well, yeah,
Not
early on, yeah, for sure. That's right. Yeah, I was going to bring that up. Yeah, yeah, for
yeah,
sure. But
but
that
yes,
kind of fades after a couple albums, and then he's just
yeah,
very original sounding.
he got more wispy, I think.
Yeah, yeah,
That's not John Arch at all.
yeah, yeah. The John Arch comparison is a good one because I hear a lot of early Fates Warning in the early part of this catalog. Um, it's interesting how like both like Fate's Warning after a couple albums kind of started off, went to like a different zone, and this band did the exact same thing. But I think they were both coming from very similar origins on their first couple of albums. Interesting parallel between the two bands, and that's George and I were talking before we started taping about how awesome this catalog is and how like if you're a Fates Warning fan and if you've been following them from the beginning and you love the early stuff and you've never listened to this band, it's like you really will make a great discovery if you dive into this catalog because there's a lot of similarities to where both bands kind of got their start. And if you listen to the first few albums, this just whole this moodiness, this darkness, the way the guitar riffs are created, the vocals. I mean, there's just a very similar vibe that you get with both bands. That if you're a Fates Warning fan and you never listened to this band, you really should. You really should. Anyway, I digress.
My number two, Into the Everflow.
How about that
And
cover, right? Woo.
yeah, it's slightly different from the original. This is the recent reissue. It's kind of based the same, but then maybe they've tweaked it or something, and it's a little more clean. Um, this album, this is a masterpiece. 8 songs, all killer. The reissue's got a cover of Black Sabbath's "Disturbing the Priest," which is a really good cover. I
It's
mean,
really good.
yeah, it's immense.
I listened
Uh,
to this at the gym the other day and I was loving the whole thing. And then that came on and I was totally getting into it. And then it was over. I'm like, no, I got to hear that again. And I went and listened to it again. I almost never do that with cover versions, especially like, more like recent stuff. But yeah, they do a great job on it.
I was going to say when the reissues came out and you were grabbing them up, I know you're not always high on covers, and I thought, man, is he going to like this one? He's got to. It's
Yeah.
really good.
Yeah, it's really good. Well, I'm such a massive fan of that of Born Again anyway. So it's not like people are like breaking down the doors to go cover songs from that album. Um,
No.
that's a really good one. It's a really good cover. And it's like I like the fact that they keep the song intact, but they do some different stuff with the riffs and it's just even, you listen to it and you're thinking, "Oh, that maybe that's what Disturbing the Priest would actually sound like when they finally get around to remixing that album, right? Because if they could make it sound like this, holy moly, because the guitars are just like monstrous on this version. Really good. And he's doing a great job of doing the screams and all that kind of stuff. So it's
Oh, yeah.
really well done. Yeah.
Uh, like I said about the last album, I think this is him probably at peak powers. He sounds incredible on this. All the melodies are awesome. The opener, Ashes, that's a little different. There's like a long intro, spacey keyboards, more keyboards than usual. That's a good tune. Out of Mind is my favorite. That's the heavy one, the fat upbeat one, and the vocal melody on that is like crazy good. Kind of there's a song on Soundgarden Super Unknown where he does kind of a similar thing, but it's I never hear guys do kind of what he's doing on there. It's kind of interesting. The title track, definitely like a mystical, it's like almost a longer tune with mellow parts, really good vocals on that. Hanging on a String is one of my favorite ballads of all time. I think it's simple, but it's all the melodies in it are fantastic. Freak Show's kind of a proggy tune. And Butterfly, the closer, it's kind of interesting. They lock into a hand percussion groove at the end and they do this groove and then Buddy's doing quotes of other famous rock songs over the
Yeah.
top of it, fitting it over. It's kind of interesting. I've never heard anybody do anything quite like that. But yeah, no bad songs, 5 stars, awesome album. So it's my number two.
Cool. All right, so here's where for me this is the cream of the crop of this catalog. And I'm going to deviate a little from George just because one album is where I came in to the catalog. I came in a little bit later on than George probably did. And my first album I ever heard from this band is still, I hold really near and dear. So my number three is going to be Into the Everflow, which I think is spectacular. I will agree with everything George said. There's some great stuff on here. So the song Ashes, which starts off the album, you know what I get a really interesting vibe of? If you can imagine early 70s David Bowie, but on steroids. The way the atmosphere is in this song, it's kind of proggy, it's kind of like almost it's not glam at all, but there's something about, when Bowie would do these kind of slower, moodier, atmospheric things. I get that big time on this. But man, Out of Mind is just amazing. That could have come off the first album. It's just right in line with that. It's so good. It's easily my favorite song on here. The chorus is catchy. The riffs are just absolutely monstrous. We haven't really talked about it. these two guys create some killer riffs on these albums.
Oh
Whether
yeah.
it's the more technical stuff or the moodier mid-pace stuff. Man, these guys just bring it. And the solos are amazing, but none of these albums to me are like show off albums. Like, oh, we're going to show you what we can do. It's all very song based, but man, what they do in these songs is just so good. I love Tiny Streams, has one of my favorite Lackey vocals on it. I love the drums. The riffs are just absolutely just crushing. Hanging on a String, good ballad. Freak Show totally crushes. The guitars are great. I think Butterfly is an amazing song. It's like I love how they mix like these haunting, like melodic, atmospheric passages to songs, and they do this kind of slow build, and then all of a sudden the big heavy riffs come in, and these just crazy pinch harmonics all over the place. The drumming is intricate, and then Lackey comes in and he's referencing all these like famous classic rock songs for like a couple bars, and you're kind of like, where did that come from? But it all blends in really, really well. Really, really good. And like George said, we've got the cover of Disturbing the Priest on here, which I think is absolutely amazing. And again, I'm not all that big on covers usually, but this is a really, really good one. So yeah, that's my number three. Could be number two, could be number one any other day. My number two is going to be Bleeding. So this is where I came into the catalog. You got, like you mentioned, Phil Catino joins on bass. No relation to Rich Catino. That's obviously spelled differently. Um, did he pull a Catino on this album? Maybe he did. I don't know. Who knows? We weren't there. Uh, the opening track, Faded, is could be my favorite song of theirs in the catalog. It's just absolutely amazing. I love the fact that it's just this mid-paced. The riffs are so good. I love his vocal. And to me, of the first four albums, I think I like this song better than like anything on the Mosquito album. It's just so, so good. I love Locust. It's just got this kind of haunting blend of like psych and prog and metal, and his vocals are just dreamy and just intoxicating. Really, really good stuff. I think that Morbid is great. I absolutely love the title track. I think it's good. I just love that riff. And I love the way the guitar tones on this album just resonate. They're just so massive. And I love the way this album is produced. Need is great. Great riffs on that. I love Skeleton. My Grave is killer. Northern Lights. I mean, it's just a great, great album. And again, it's just so damn moody, but it really, really works for me. Other bands would do this kind of moody stuff, and after a while, I'd probably it's like it would get a little tedious, but I don't get that here. The lead guitar work is great on this album. I love the riffs on this album. I love the covers, love the cover art, and the drumming is really, really good on this album. Well, across all these albums actually. And then on the reissue, you've got all sorts of get cover of Diary of a Madman live, which is really, really good also, and some like kind of demos of this. A really, really good album. Love it to death.
We
So
we
talk
should
about our
mention
number
too.
one.
Yeah, well, we should mention that these guys are their stock and trade to me as guitar players is their harmonies. They
Yes.
do a lot of the lead sections is not a lead, it's just harmony progressions that they put together. And they don't sound like anybody else's harmonies. I mean, this is not like Iron Maiden harmonies. This is
Yeah.
total fantastic.
Yeah, like they'll come out with this kind of like dark, menacing, mid-paced riff, and then all of a sudden the two of them will like just go into this little three-note harmony thing, and then back to the riff. And they do that a lot, and it's just really cool because it's just so different. Love it.
And
But
they always had a good tone on all their records,
yeah, yeah.
even the early
Even
ones.
yeah. Even
Like
because I remember like there were some people that used to say, well, some of these albums aren't all that well produced. And I guess you could make a case for that, but there's a charm to the way these albums sound, and I think the guitar tones are killer on all these records. Absolutely killer. So whatever they were doing, it sounds good to my ears. So
I think they bounced around from label to label too, so you can't
yeah,
always control what your budget is going to be.
yeah, yeah. But
But
the
yeah,
guitars always sound monstrous. Always.
our number one, the band on the shirt, the Social Grace.
Yep.
This is again is an old Metal Blade remaster. Um, I was at the time it came out, there was a local magazine here that reviewed it. I told the story on Proxy, and the reviewer said it was a cross between Dream Theater and Watchtower, which had nothing to do with either one, but I got what I've learned as a prog fan to get what people mean when they say stuff. Sometimes that's the road marker that they have for progressive. So I got it anyways. I got a hold of her and said, "Where do I get this thing?" And she's like, "Well, I'll send it to you. I didn't really love it. Okay. So she sent it, and I was like, "Wow, did not expect that. Um, just from the first track and the Devil Cried. Wow, what an opener.
Yeah, that's
Another
quite the
Prophet
song.
song is another great song. It's got a mellow vibe. Again, with the hand percussion. There's this middle part where he really evokes John Arch. I mean, big time. And for me, that's like candy. I love John Arch. So anybody that even mildly resembles him, I'm on board. I remember is the first instance where he's doing the Jethro Tull thing
Yep.
with the flute and the acoustic. People love it. I like it too. It's great. Something different for a prog metal band in particular.
And they
You
never overdid it, right? It's just like
know,
they just maybe one or two appearances on the album. That's really it. It's always brief. It's not like overloading with it. Yeah.
yeah. Uh, Eye of the Storm is great. Kind of a more typical driving metal tune. Um, Towards the back half, he indulges a little more of the psyche kind of elements. Only in a Dream, Spiral Tower. Uh, the clothes are nothing. There's a drop in afterwards. I think it's Monty Python. I'm not sure. It's pretty funny. Um, but yeah, it just this album, words can't even describe how much it knocked me over back then, and I still love it just as much today. It's a no skipper, perfect 10. I mean, absolutely fantastic. Norm Leggio, the drummer, this is him at his peak. Really, a lot of really creative beat construction on this. So that's another reason it resonates with me, and maybe because it's where I came in also. So it was my number one.
Yeah, I mean, this was kind of like a no-brainer at number one. It's just it for the time. I mean, this is 1990, and so this is what 2 years before Images and Words, but it is a few years after those really amazing early No Exit and Awaken the Guardian from Fate's Warning. It is what a year after the first Dream Theater album, but it fits right in with all this stuff, but it is its own thing. It's very different. I think that kind of psychedelic element is apparent in their music that you don't get with any of those other bands. Really, there was no other prog metal band that I can think of that was doing anything like this. But this one is just so intricate and complex in spots. I mean, and The Devil Cried is just absolutely killer. Just amazing. I love Halo of Thorns, and I like the way these guys will start off the song kind of atmospheric and moody, and then all of a sudden, boom, and you get these like sledgehammer riffs that come in, and the wailing vocals, and that really intricate drum and percussion thing that he does. Oh, just so good. I mean, Leggio is really, really good player. A guy that
Yeah,
nobody ever talks about. Really good. I think I hear, I get the John Arch comparison quite a bit too. I hear a little bit like, especially on Successor, I hear a little like maybe Dickinson meets Gillan on there. Because I think he can do both similar type things to what those guys do, which is really cool. I love the flute on I Remember. Eye of the Storm totally takes me back to Awaken the Garden era, Fate's Warning. I mean, it's just got that dark and menacing kind of vibe with those intricate riffs, but they're kind of heavy and kind of doomy at the same time. That's the one thing about I think that I always thought was kind of similar between the two bands is because the riffs are created, they're progressive, they're intricate, but yet they're slow and sort of doomy, but it's not doom, right? So it's kind of like if you were a doom band and you kind of made it really progressive, this is what it would sound like. They just everything they do is so good. Yeah, there's not a bad song on here. Spiral Tower is great, Strange, a Psychotic Waltz, all really, really good stuff. I love the guitar tones. Yeah, yeah, their first album is still their best, but all these albums are really, really strong. So I think that for folks watching, wherever you want to take your first step in this catalog, will be a good step. I think we could safely say though, George, right? If you like the more complex style of progressive metal, go with the first two albums.
Yes.
You like kind of moodier, more mid-pace stuff, um, then you can go, well, Mosquito to me is like its own thing in this catalog. That's more of like that's got that very like early to mid 90s sound to it, but it's still Psychotic Waltz. I think Bleeding is a little more straightforward, like metal with some darker elements, and then the newest album is kind of that's its own thing too, right? It's just yeah, I don't know. They're all
It,
really good though. They're all
it
really
sounds like a slightly less inspired version of Bleeding to me, the latest album. But that's to be expected. You don't take 24 years off and come back, right on it.
yeah. No,
I think Lackey's a little bit compromised too, but been a quarter century. I mean,
yeah.
he's in his 60s, I'm sure. So it's like,
Yeah, he's got to be. He's probably a couple of years older than me, so yeah.
but yeah, what you said about the Doomy thing is right. When I've described him on the show before, when I brought him up on Proxy, I always make sure to include Sabbath in my descriptors because it's in there. You can hear the slow, like even the slow riffs are interesting. That's a Sabbath thing, and that's the thing for them too. Even the slow stuff's interesting.
Yeah, for sure, 100%. And that's probably one of the reasons why I love him so much because I have such this deep love for Sabbath, and you could tell that they appreciate that band that had been influenced by them as well. So yeah, it's just a really, really great catalog. And it's probably a conversation for another day, but I haven't really dived into the Dead Soul Tribe stuff. I think I have one of their albums. I don't even know how many they've put out over the years. I'd never found that as appealing as this band, although it's okay. Um,
That was more Tool, and Tools and me are, I like them well enough, but not a favorite. So I always considered them a little more on the Tool end of things.
yeah. I don't know
He
how
did
many albums they released.
he did a record in 2010, a band called The Shadow Theory, a one and done, with the bass player from Pain of Salvation. That's a lot closer to Psychotic Waltz than the Dead Soul Tribe is.
Yeah,
But yeah, that was one and done.
have you
And
heard the news? I'm sorry, go ahead.
like I said, the solo album, The Strange Mind of Buddy Lackey from '93, that is pretty psychotic, mixed with it's a little more varied. There's a little bit of funky stuff even. That's got some slink in its game. So that's another one people should check out.
Yeah, I've never heard that. That's probably worth checking out. Have
Yeah.
you heard any news from the Psychotic Waltz camp on a follow-up to the last album? It's like 5 years already.
Yeah, I saw a video. Graves has a page, and he posts fairly often, it seems like. And I saw a video from him saying that there are problems in the camp. He didn't, I don't know necessarily like getting along problems, but more like business problems. That's the last thing I saw. So who knows where that goes. They they're another band like Sons of Apollo. They had their tour killed by COVID. I think when they made their comeback, they were just all vim and vigor. And when the COVID thing came in, I think it just, it screwed up a lot of bands, and they're one of them that just it seemed to take all the vigor out of their comeback.
Yeah, that'd be a shame. It's like the pin got let out, right? And all of a sudden, the name.
Yeah, other stuff's in the way. I'd have to go back and watch the videos, but yeah, something's going on there that
Hmm.
I wouldn't be so sure we get another one.
Yeah, that'd be a shame because I think, the last album is definitely really good and I think got us all excited for more. And but yeah, the years fly by pretty quickly and it's like you blink and another 10, 15 years have gone by, right? So it's just the way it goes. But well, we'll see. And they're not getting any younger. So
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think one of the guitar players has health problems. That's one of the things.
uh,
So that was part of it.
hmm, okay. Well, time will tell, I guess. So in the meantime, we just ranked them. If you're a fan, rank them as you like them down in the comments below. And if you've never investigated this band, we highly recommend you do so. If you are a metal fan, prog metal fan, um, there's really, really good stuff here in this catalog. So I would say
It's
easily, I think be safe to say that all of these albums, for me, if I were to give a rating to them, they're all either a 4 out of 5, 4.5 out of 5, or a 5 out of 5 star. I don't think
Yes.
me, I wouldn't put anything less than that.
No. And don't be the guy that goes, I don't really like prog metal and put it in the folder that you don't have to check out because they exceed the genre in a way. They're different enough that you can't just do that. You can't just say, I don't really like prog metal that much. You have to check them out.
Yeah, they don't do like the 10, 15 minute songs. They don't do endless soloing. These, if it's very song based, it's very heavy and atmospheric and moody and great vocals, catchy hooks, and just, great guitar work. But like I said, you get the added bonus of the occasional keyboards and flute thrown in. It's really, really good stuff. And plus, you get these amazing covers and things like that. So, yeah. And like I said, if you're interested in investigating, I don't know if these are still in print, but the reissues of the first four albums are absolutely dynamite. They're extremely well priced, and you get bonus discs on all of them with all sorts of demo tracks and alternate takes and live stuff and covers and things like that. So I know Ken over at lasercd.com had most of them in stock for a while, so I'm not sure if he still does, but that's probably your best bet to go investigate these albums, today for the first time. So
Bleeding, 9 of the 11 songs are in the 3 minute range. That should tell you right there that they're not your typical. It's got to be long to be proggy. No.
yep, for sure. Yeah, so there you have it, everybody. Ranking the albums of Psychotic Waltz. Feel free to post some stuff down in the comments section below on what you think of this catalog. And like I said, if you are a newbie to the band, go check them out and come back and let us know what you thought of them, right? Go give them a listen. You can probably listen to all this stuff here on YouTube and check them out. So, or wherever you listen to your music, Spotify or Apple Music and all that stuff, they should be readily available there. So, yeah. So, George, you want to give, we got a little show called For Fusion Friday coming up fairly soon. You want to give folks a little preview of what they can expect on the next episode?
Yeah, we're doing in between all the familiar type shows. I like to throw in kind of a different one, can shake it up, keep it different. So this one is going to be number bands. It's food for thought, like, who's got a number in their band name. So I thought that would be a different approach to get different bands talked about because we love to talk about the old school, old guard that everybody loves, but we have to keep it interesting for us and everybody else. So I like to throw one in there every once in a while, shake it up.
Yeah, there you go. So that will be the first Friday of March. So that what day does that fall on? Was that the 7th, the 8th? My calendar isn't something like that. The first, I know March 1st is on a Saturday, so it'll be that following Friday. So whatever
It's
date that is,
the 7th.
7th. Yeah, there we go.
Oh, wait, no, that was this month. March. Yeah, it is the 7th
The
again.
7th again. Yeah, weird how that doesn't often happen, but yeah. So stay tuned for that. For Fusion Friday happening in just a couple weeks. And thanks for watching this episode of Ranking the Albums. What do I got coming up next? Oh, next is we got some familiar folks from not only For Fusion Friday, but in the prog seat. I'm going to be joined next Sunday by Chad Hutchinson and Eric Porter. We are going to be ranking the solo albums of Kim Mitchell, guitar player and vocalist from Max Webster. That's coming up next week, so we're all pretty excited about that. A long time coming, so stay tuned for that and lots more happening here on the channel. Visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on YouTube all together, all the
All
damn time.
in time.
Please subscribe if you haven't already and click on that notification bell so you get alerted of all of our content as a post. And please do hit the like button before you leave. Also, down below, we get the links to all those things: Ko-Fi page, merch page, Cameo, Sea Tranquility membership options, all down below. So, for those of you who do care to help out, we greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much. And we'll see you next Sunday here on Ranking the Albums. For George Lamie, I am Pete Pardo. Psychotic Waltz is today. Next week, Kim Mitchell. Till then, have a good week, everybody. Take care.